Call the roll. Commissioner Rennie,
Present.
Commissioner Lee, here. And I'd like to welcome our newest member of the commission, Commissioner Noreen Ambrose. Great. I'd also like to thank Commissioner Ryan for his service on the commission, although brief, and wanted to officially welcome Commissioner Ambrose to the commission. So we'll start off with item number 2, public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda. Oh, no public comment. Okay, no public comment. Item number 3. This is new for the Commission. In January of this year, we approved more new enforcement regulations, and they went into effect on March 20th, and incorporated in those enforcement regulations was the consent calendar. So items appearing here do not require discussion by the Commission, but we'll open it for public comment at this time. There being no public comment, we'll move on to Agenda Item 4, discussion and possible action on draft minutes for the Commission's February 16th, 2018 regular meeting, the March 16th, 2018 regular meeting, the April 3rd, 2018 special joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, the April 18th, 2018 special meeting, and the April 20th, 2018 regular meeting. Sorry, Director Pelham.
Thank you, Chair Chu. I just wanted to note for the public's information and for the Commission's information, we have completed our minutes draft for the April 3rd special joint meeting of the Commission. We did not, however, complete them in time for the posting on Friday to meet Brown Act requirements. So our plan is to finalize the one last proof and have them in circulation and to you and the public in advance of the June meeting. But unfortunately, because we did not have them posted in time and finalized in time for our 72-hour notice on Friday, they are not on your agenda for action today. Thank you.
That is true of all the minutes?
No, that's just for the April 3rd special joint meeting. All the other meeting minutes from February, March, and the other 2 April meetings are in your packets for approval today and can be acted on.
Right. Thank you.
Commissioners, any comments?
Yes.
Commissioner Rennie.
On the April 18th draft on page 4, about the middle of the page, it says, Commissioner Rennie moved that the Commission accept recommendations of the staff and to send back to the Board of Supervisors a revised ordinance. And it says with is, and it should be which is consistent.
Thank you.
Other than that, I had no other comments.
Any other comments from commissioners on the minutes? No. Public comment? No public comment. Is there a motion to approve, move to approve all the minutes as amended per Commissioner Rennie?
Also move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All the minutes are approved by a vote of 4-0. Okay. Item number 5, at the request of the respondent, this matter is going to be held over to the June 2018 meeting. Agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding letter received from the Angela Alioto for Mayor 2018 campaign dated May 3rd, 2018. So just as a reminder and for the benefit of our newest commission member, on April 20th, this commission heard an appeal by the Alioto campaign and gave her additional time to qualify for public financing. And at that time, the commission noted that the decision of the executive director would be final and non-appealable. So our purpose today is to discuss the serious allegations that were raised in Ms. Alioto's letter to the Commission and provide the Commissioners an opportunity to ask questions about that. So, Ms. Pelham, would you?
Yes, thank you, Commission Chair Chu. The item number 6 memo contains information as requested last Friday by the chair regarding a letter that was received from Ms. Alioto for the Angela Alioto for Mayor 2018 committee. The information that we have contains both the letter from Ms. Alioto as well as the information that is responsive to issues that were raised in her letter. It contains information regarding various issues and concerns that were raised by the candidate. As Chair Chu indicated, the Commission at its April 20th meeting had voted to grant the committee until April the 25th to submit an additional public financing qualification request with additional information and also for contributions through that it might have received on March 27th. The Commission motion required the determination to be delivered by me to the committee on May 2nd by noon, and that the determination would be final and not appealable. The committee did 11:30 in the morning on the 25th timely resubmitted its amended request for public financing. We reviewed that in the time frame provided by the Commission and established that although the committee had received a slightly higher amount, qualified a slightly higher amount, it still fell short of the $50,000 required under the law to qualify for public financing, and that notice was provided to the committee at about 11:30 on May 2nd, 11:30 in the morning. Those are attachments provided to you in your memo. At about 12:30 on May 2nd, I received an email request from Ms. Alioto to bring the issue to the attention of the Commission as cited in her letter. I relayed that to City Attorney Shen and to the Chair for any follow-up that Chair Chu might deem necessary. The result of that was the request for additional information from Ms. Alioto, which is provided in her letter, and then also provided additional details relevant to the questions that were raised in that letter in this memo for you. The staff and I reviewed all of our information. We reviewed relevant documentation and email communication to provide to you our understanding of the issues and what we understood at what time, and that information is presented and summarized for you in the memo that's before you. The staff and I are here to answer any questions if you have any for us.
Commissioner Rennie?
I have a question. I was not here at the April 20th or 18th session where this subject matter was discussed. But I'm curious, what was the problem was, as I understand it, that the committee identified donors who fell within the category in the amount to satisfy the requirements of public financing, but what was missing was evidence showing that they were San Francisco residents. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. There were a variety of issues, and as is our practice, we provide detailed listing to the committee at the conclusion of our review. Missing addresses was a significant portion of that. Sometimes there was also information that did not allow us to demonstrate, to verify the contributor, but the vast majority were items related to residency. So the supporting documentation that was provided by the committee did not enable us to verify or prove San Francisco residency as that is required in law.
And you provided them and identified which ones of the contributions that they were claiming did not qualify because they lacked demonstration that they were San Francisco residents?
Yes.
By name?
Yes.
And did the committee give you any explanation why they were unable to give you that information from the April 18th date to, I think your date was April 25th when they were supposed to supply it?
The committee provided additional information in its request of April the 25th, and I'd have to ask Amy Lee, our auditor, to come and assist with exact numbers if that's what you're looking for. I don't have them at the top of my head.
I'm just curious as to if they were advised at the April 18th, or even prior to that time, that they didn't qualify because this list of contributors didn't show that they were in fact San Francisco residents, which was one of the requirements. And did they give you any explanation as to why they just couldn't go out and get that information and give it to you?
No, they did not provide that explanation. I do know that on the 25th, when they were asked to submit their additional information by noon, we did confirm and received confirmation from the committee that they had submitted everything to us and that their submission on April 25th was the complete record. So they may have further comment on that, but we did confirm that they had submitted a complete record, and that's what they told us.
All right. Thank you.
Director Pelham, so with regard to the software from NetFile, in reading the letter from the Alioto campaign and also your memo, but also was received today public comment from the CEO of NetFile. My understanding is that on April 13th, NetFile communicated with the commission about a problem with another candidate's filing, and went into the system to fix that problem. But that problem related to software that was maintained or sold by NetFile for subscription service and not with the commission's filing system. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so in that email also of the same day, April 13th, the CEO of NetFile says that the problem was fixed. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, it is. Our understanding at the time was that was a different committee and it was a different issue.
Okay. So that any filings that happened before April 13th, if there was a problem with the software, there was no way that the commission would have known.
We were not aware for issues related to the Ethics Commission's software. Mm-hmm. We were not aware of issues related to Ethics Commission software. If you would like, I have Stephen Massey, our Director of Information Technology Services, can comment and provide a bit more detail about how our system works and the ways in which committees use a professional services tool that NetFile also provides to paying clients that is not part of our NetFile system.
And so then on April 25th, at the time of the filing, because that was the deadline at noon for the resubmission to qualify for public financing, you confirmed with the campaign that they were able to submit all the documents that they wished to submit in support of their application for public financing. Is that right?
Yes, they had contacted our office to alert us to the fact that they would be filing soon. And when we received the filing, I confirmed via email with a campaign committee staff person that the information was complete as they filed it, and she was able to confirm that it was complete.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question to the executive director. How many residential omissions were there?
If you could just give me a moment.
Yes.
I'm referring to attachment 1. This is agenda item 6, page 7. Actually, on page 8, there's a table. So when the committee submitted its application on April the 25th, there were 40 instances of the 46 contributions that were deemed to be not eligible. 40 of those, or 87%, did not have the documentation required by the regulations sufficient to demonstrate San Francisco residency.
Okay. Number two, the action at our last meeting was to grant the extension of time until April 25th at noon, with a further provision there be no further appeal to the executive director. What's the reason for putting this on calendar?
The reason to put it on the calendar is to enable the commission to have a factual basis to examine the questions that were raised in Ms. Alioto's letter of the 3rd. It was at the request of the chair, and we wanted to make sure the commission had the opportunity to consider any issues that it thought might be relevant or important to the issues that were raised in her letter.
What was the reason for that part of the motion last month that prohibited any further appeal to you?
I think that might be a question to ask Ms. Alioto.
That was the recommendation from somebody on the staff to the commission, that any extension be predicated upon a condition of no further appeal administratively.
Yes, and
The reason that it's on calendar.
So Commissioner Kopp, if I may jump in, the reason that it's on the agenda today is because it contained in the letter from Ms. Alioto.
I know, I've read that letter.
Yes, that she believes that there was fraudulent behavior on the part of the director of the Ethics Commission, and I felt that the commission would like the opportunity to discuss those allegations and to satisfy themselves.
Well, it doesn't give me much confidence in the sanctity of our adopted resolutions. The third question is, has a petition for writ of mandate in San Francisco Superior Court been filed, to your knowledge?
not to my knowledge, and I would, just as a point of information on your earlier question, I do not understand this to be an appeal. It is on the agenda as a discussion and possible action regarding the allegations made in the letter by Ms. Alioto. So I do not consider this, or I'm not characterizing it as an appeal.
Thank you.
Commission, any other questions from the commission? This time I'd like to call, invite Ms. Alioto or the Alioto campaign.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sandra Rivera-Speed. I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Alioto campaign. Just to go back a little bit to when we were here last on April 20th, one of the things that the executive director had mentioned initially, which started the whole appeal conversation, was that the Office of the Ethics Commission had made a mistake. And that mistake was that conflicting information had been provided to Ms. Alioto's campaign regarding whether or not March 27th could be used as a fundraising day or not. And there was conflicting information, and as a result, Ms. Alioto's campaign did not submit the March 27th donations with respect to their initial submission. We're here today because it is the Alioto campaign's belief that the Office of the Ethics Commissioner made another mistake. And that mistake was not informing the Alioto campaign that there was a glitch with the system that candidates, including Ms. Alioto, were using to upload their supporting documentation to establish their $50,000 threshold that they had to establish in order to qualify for public funding. Now, as admitted in Ms. Pelham's papers at page 4, Mr. Montgomery, David Montgomery, who is the head of NetFile Professional, did in fact notify staff that an error had occurred with NetFile Professional on April 13th. If you go to the email from David Montgomery that's attached as Exhibit B to Ms. Alioto's letter, Mr. Montgomery states, from our records, there were 3 qualifying request submissions to the SFEC by the Alioto Committee, 327, 46, and 410, where the submissions were guaranteed to be incomplete due to the missing feature of sending the attachments for the detailed transactions from the filer side software. I personally notified the SFEC about the missing feature for detail attachments on April 13th. So what does this mean? This means that when Ms. Alioto was granted the additional 2.5 days to resubmit supporting documentation on April 20th, I believe it was a different room, but before the commission, Ms. Pelham had not informed Ms. Alioto that, in fact, there had been a glitch with the system regarding her prior submissions. So the time that Ms. Alioto spent on her resubmission, which was ultimately resubmitted timely on April 25th, was spent curing these defects that were, in fact, not defects, because the issue had been situated, or it had been fixed by Mr. Montgomery. And Ms. Pelham was aware of that. She was aware of that at the hearing that we were all out on April 20th. But Ms. Alioto's campaign wasn't. So between April 20th and April 25th, they were spending time curing these, what they perceived errors or submissions that they had to cure per Ms. Pelham's office, and they didn't need to spend time curing them because there was no error with the majority of those, because there had been a glitch with the system. And that's indicated in Mr. Montgomery's email, and it's indicated in Ms. Pelham's response to Ms. Alioto's letter.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Ms. Rivera, I have a question, because then so that was you're referencing the email from Mr. Montgomery to
Mr. Mallon.
Mr. Mallon, correct. But we actually have, as attachment 5, on page 19 of agenda item number 6, the actual email that Mr. Montgomery sent to Director Pelham, and in paragraph 1 says, in parenthetical, as an aside, the problem was caused by a bug in the treasurer's e-filing software and not because of a bug in your, meaning the SF Ethics Commission system.
Right. So that my understanding is that the Ethics Commission uses a different version of NetFile, not NetFile Professional. But as the commission knew, NetFile Professional was being used by Ms. Alioto in her campaign. She was not notified of any glitch, nor was she notified of the curing of the glitch. And the glitch was the same that happened to Jane Kim as with Ms. Alioto.
Right. And then in paragraph 7, though, of the David Montgomery email of April 13th, second, the last sentence, otherwise everything in the system appears correct and normal. So the problem was fixed.
Right. It was fixed as of April 13th, but Ms. Alioto was never, this is not Ms. Alioto's email. She was never informed of this.
But this is not software that the commission maintains. This was NetFile software, and that as far as the commission was concerned, there was a problem they were told about, and then they were told it was fixed. So as of the 13th, as Ms. Pelham previously just confirmed, as far as the Ethics Commission was concerned, there was a problem and it was fixed as of the 13th. So what was there to communicate?
Right. There was to communicate the prior submissions by Ms. Alioto on the 27th, the 5th, and the 10th, as well as on the 20th, she was essentially curing those submissions where there was an inability to upload the information. Ms. Alioto was never informed of that. Ms. Pelham knew that Ms. Alioto, from the 3 prior submissions, that she was using NetFile Professional. She did not alert her that, in fact, there had been, the issue is not that it was fixed. The issue was that Ms. Alioto did not know it had been fixed until her team had been talking to the Ethics Commissioner's office on April 24th, and they said that there was this, for the first time, were pointing out that there was this glitch with NetFile Professional. In fact, they had attempted to cure all these proposed defects with their submission, but they weren't defects. So why we're here today is because of that time that was spent trying to cure defects which simply did not exist, and the ethics, or Ms. Pelham, the executive director, was on notice of that per David Montgomery's emails, and she knew that that was the system that Ms. Alioto was using, and no one said, hey, those bugs have been figured out, so you actually don't have to cure those defects because they're not in fact defects. You don't have to waste your time dealing with those, hundreds of submissions. Remember, the first time she got her letter of decision back from the executive director, there were 280 items for her to cure. And that number reduced, but it didn't reduce by that much. And I'll just point out that it'd be one thing if Ms. Alioto's campaign was way off. If there was no chance in heck that this extra time that she spent on curing these defects made no difference. She was $1,074 short. On the May 2nd letter from Ms. Pelham, $1,074 short of qualifying funds that her and her team spent hours. I think in Ms. Alioto's letter, she studied like over 1,000 hours just trying to cure these defects that were problems known to the executive director.
But I'm having trouble understanding why the Ethics Commission would have an obligation to inform a filer of a software problem that was a problematic. It is a third-party software platform that is neither maintained nor provided to the public by the Commission, and they were told by the software provider that there was a problem with respect to a separate campaign, why there would create any sort of obligation on the part of the Ethics Commission to notify other candidates. It's kind of like the IRS. Someone has a problem filing through TurboTax. Does the IRS then have an obligation to notify all potential users, filers, that there's a problem with TurboTax? But I don't think it works that way.
But the purpose of the IRS is not to help people, pay less taxes. That's not the purpose of the IRS.
I'm not suggesting.
And the purpose, as we understand it, of the executive director and her office and the Ethics Commission is to help, not hurt, to help candidates qualify for public funding to be matched, not impede their ability to qualify. In this situation, just like the mistake that was made the last time we were before you, this was a mistake that impeded Ms. Alioto's campaign's ability to be on a similar playing field as Mark Leno, Jane Kim, London Breed, and their supporters. She's just asking for what is fair. It was the same issue. The issue was very simple with the NetFile Professional software. It wasn't uploading supporting documents. Whether it was Jane Kim, whether it was Mark Leno, it was an issue with the software, and that's admitted in the document that Ms. Pelham prepared.
So then on April 25th, was the campaign able to upload all the documents that it sought to upload? Was there a software problem that persisted on the 25th?
No, there was no software problem that persisted because it had been cured, as you mentioned, I believe on April 13th, and as reflected in that email from David Montgomery. So the sole issue is that it was the time that was wasted by Ms. Alioto's campaign in doing the resubmission on April 25th that they were focusing their time on all these submissions that they had already submitted properly, but for the NetFile error that they had not been informed about, and which the executive director's office knew about since April 13th.
But you had the opportunity to resubmit on the 25th.
We had the opportunity to resubmit, but we did not have the proper amount of time. That's why Ms. Alioto is asking for an additional day as a result of the mistake of not informing Ms. Alioto's campaign to attempt to qualify and have the same opportunities as everyone else. She's $1,074 short. This is time that she could have used to cure those issues. And we do have some additional speakers.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
And maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but the information that the commission was seeking was information which the Alioto campaign had, correct?
The information which the commission was seeking, the supporting documentation?
Yes.
Yes.
It had nothing to do with Netflix. They had it themselves.
Well, sir, a lot of the documentation is so the net file issue was documentation that they had, yes. That could be uploaded. But the thing is the way it was conveyed on the spreadsheet was that there was an error. So, for example, proof of residency, right? So the Alioto campaign had documentation that they uploaded that properly ticked all the boxes to establish San Francisco proof of residency, and that's what prompted the call to ethics when the woman who was helping out the treasurer contacted Amy Lee of ethics and said, look, I know I submitted this stuff to you.
I don't care whether it wasn't a question whether you had submitted it. You were being asked to submit it now, not some earlier date, now, and why wasn't it submitted immediately?
It was submitted.
Well, and then, according to the report that's attached as exhibit, what was it? It's a May 2nd letter to you. Attached to it is a schedule and says there are insufficient documentation to verify San Francisco residency of 40. Why didn't you on the second say, here's the documentation?
So there were a lot of proofs of residency, and people will speak to that needed to be cured, that the campaign didn't have the time to, I'm sorry?
Needed to be what?
Cured, like there was a defect, so they needed to be cured and resubmitted. That the time was allocated to the missing information. So, like I said, because of the net file, the error with the net file pro, we were focused, a lot of the time and attention was focused to making sure that those submissions were correct.
But they've now given you, and they gave you on May 2nd, 40 names that they said it was insufficient. Have you got them today?
More, yes, and more people are going to speak to that after me. I am, the people on the ground floor, the grassroots people are going to be speaking about those particulars. So I will allow them to just.
Okay, I'd like to invite other commissioners to ask questions if there are any questions. No. Okay, we'll hold off, I guess. So now we'll have public comment.
Honorable Commissioners, please accept my gratitude for your time and service here today. Your job is a difficult one, and it's very appreciated. I'd like to amend my remarks to first address Commissioner Rennie and his questions, as I was one of the individuals who was verifying residents' information for a number of our donors. The issue has been that residents' information, which was submitted in good faith by the donor and by the committee, was then rejected by the Ethics Commission staff. For instance, there are 5 donors who submitted as proof of their residency, when they were rejected after giving their correct street addresses, a rental receipt from their landlord. Now, we all know that there's a housing shortage in San Francisco. We know that a verbal rental agreement is accepted as legally binding. We learned that in the case of the Dover Club a few years ago here. These folks live here in rooms rented from a homeowner. The receipt was from that homeowner. There were 4 brothers in one situation. In another, there is a merchant sailor who I know personally as a member of the Sailors Union, where he is active, who is often at sea for as long as a year at a time. So these individuals submitted their handwritten rental receipts at our request, and they were again rejected by your staff. Those 5 donors together constitute over $400 that we would like to recover today. I will also tell you that in contacting donors who had given us in good faith their personal information and asking for copies of utility bills, rental receipts, or other documents, some people responded openly and willingly. Some told us they were insulted when we diplomatically stated that this was a request from the city's Ethics Commission. They were infuriated. They asked for their contribution to the campaign back. They indicated they would never contribute to a campaign again and would no longer vote in city elections. I don't believe this is the result that you're looking for.
Question.
Yes.
First of all, identify yourself for
Thank you.
the administrative record and any Superior Court record.
Thank you very much, Judge Kopp. My name is Susan Horsfall.
All right, now, the executive director states in this May 2nd letter previously referred to, there are 46 missing, or 46 fewer
Rejected names, yes.
than are required. And the question from Commissioner Rennie was, do you have all those 46 with the requisite residential proof?
We have many. The names that I was assigned, which is about a dozen, we do have. Even with the 46 rejected.
Do you have 46?
Yes.
Okay.
We only need 11 to meet your requirement. We don't need the whole 46 because we have still over 500 San Francisco donors. The 46 did not.
Excuse me for a moment, Madam Chair, through the chair to Ms. Pelham. Is it 46 or 11?
I do not understand the 11. I have not seen a list of 11. There were 46 instances where contributions on the April 25th submission were insufficient for eligibility purposes. I'm not sure what the subset of 11 is referring to.
Yeah, Ms. Horsfeld, what did the 11 refer to?
With the 11 additional donors, we would reach the $50,000 threshold. We have exceeded the 500 donor
I
threshold.
want to go back to the 46.
Yes.
Did you have the 46 at noon on April 25th?
I don't have a yes or no answer to that because a couple of those names.
Have a yes or no answer.
Well, a couple of those 46 were not rejected on April the 25th.
Commissioner Angela Alioto, I can answer that for you. We had over 52,000. We only needed to meet 50,000. Of the 46, 3 were clearly from Oakland. Of the 46, we have 15 that are clearly where the person lives. And that was the problem with the software not uploading all of the documents in the first place. We were reworking those same proof of evidence. And so as a consequence, we have the $50,000 threshold plus $200 or $300. We don't need the 46 to qualify or the 43. We only need 11 to qualify, and we have those out of, we actually have 15. And if you take a good look at who they are, you will see that they do, in fact, qualify.
Thank you.
Thank you to each member of the Ethics Commission for their service and to the city and for taking the time to hear us today. My name is Annika Stegg, and I am part of the fundraising team for Alioto for Mayor. Based on ethics requirements, as we've talked about, we asked donors to send us proof of their San Francisco residency in the form of copies of their California IDs, utility bills, bank statements, rental agreements, voter registration records, recent pay stubs, or even voided checks. We spent, between staff and volunteers, we spent hundreds, perhaps thousands of hours reaching out to donors and asking for proof of residency. I'd like to highlight two such instances. One such contribution was made by a donor who listed a business address. It has a unit number. It is where this donor both lives and works. We reached out to him for proof of residency. He sent us a copy of his California license, and it has that same address on it with a unit number where he lives. And this was rejected because it is technically a business address. Based on a simple Google search, you will see that the entire block has residences above businesses. This is a place where this donor both lives and works. There was another instance where a contribution was rejected because a donor used a business address. This is an address that he uses for every single one of his bills. We reached out to that donor, and he was able to send us proof of residency in the form of a California driver's license. That California driver's license also uses a business address. He, under that address, is registered as an absentee voter. We have confirmed his voter ID number, and we believe that if it is good enough, if the address is good enough for a voter registration, it should be good enough to prove proof of residency in the city of San Francisco. These generous donors do not have other proof of residency documentation to provide. They are, in fact, San Francisco residents and deserve to have their contributions recognized as such. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Commissioners. My name is Ali Davari. I'm a resident here in San Francisco. Before I start, I want to really thank each of you for your service to a city that I love. This is a city, just really quickly, a city that my husband and I chose to live in before he escaped Iran during the Ayatollah revolution. And my husband and I, just give you a little brief background, we're the owners of Focaccia Market and Bakery. I was here actually on April 20th sharing my story, and I'm here again to share it again. My husband and I, we own Focaccia Market and Bakery. We've got locations all throughout San Francisco. We're also owners of San Francisco Florist, a premier floral boutique located in Financial District. But I think what our biggest joy is that we are parents to our single child who is 18 years old, Sophia, who was born in the heart of this city. So as you can imagine, we're very invested in the city that we love. We chose to support Angela Alioto because we believe that she loves the city as much as we do. But that is not the reason I am here. The reason that I am here is that a few months ago, I made a small contribution. I wrote a check. I filled out the donor form as I was supposed to. And I made this contribution to Angela Alioto's campaign. On April 16th, I was notified, and I believe that was either a Friday or a Saturday, from the campaign committee that my donation was rejected as a non-resident. I didn't make a fuss about it. I decided to take a copy of my California driver's license, which happens to have the same address as on my check. I took a picture of it. I looked at it, and given that I am impaired in my vision, as you can see, I made sure that I could read all the digits on the photo that I sent. Well, a couple of days later, I was told, I got a call back from and I sent it, and everything I thought was fine. A couple of days later, I was called by the campaign and told that the ethics committee had rejected my California driver's license because they stated it was blurry. Now, I was heartbroken, to be honest with you. This is the first time I want to reiterate that I am Persian. In my culture, we are taught to keep our heads down and not get involved in politics. Seeing Angela Alioto for the first time got us excited, which is why we wanted to participate and support her for mayor. Now, to live in this city is every Persian girl's dream. But right now, the Persian girl standing in front of you. All I am asking from each of you is that I be allowed to participate in the democratic process that we try to escape Iran from and to be a part of in this city. a democratic process that offers and allows us to support Angela Alioto for mayor. That did not happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask a question of Ms. Pelham.
Of course.
Commissioner Kopp?
What do you, if your driver's license and I don't know, these other documents show the place of business, that's it, right? You don't qualify.
Committees, in order to qualify somebody, when there has been a driver's license submitted, shows an address that is consistent with a voter identification or with some other proof of residency for San Francisco.
Yeah, well, this driver's license is a business address.
That is our understanding,
All right,
and that
so
is the standard we apply.
doesn't qualify, so then what?
So it was rejected because it
I
did
understand.
not qualify.
Sir, I apologize. I want to make a clarification.
No, I'm sorry. Don't interrupt me.
Okay, I apologize.
So then, what do? Do you tell, I don't know, do you tell the Alioto campaign this doesn't qualify because it's a business address? You only have 2 of those on this letter you sent.
Actually, to clarify, the 2 from May were contributions that were drawn.
All right, so those
on a
aren't the
business
2 that
account.
include this woman's application.
I would have
Hers
to.
was in April. All right, so those 2 are irrelevant. But how do you convey as soon as possible to the submitter that this doesn't count because it's a business address?
We provide a detailed list on an Excel spreadsheet by the contributor's name with the information that was lacking. We tell them it was rejected. We tell them the basis for the rejection.
And is the burden on the submitting campaign?
Yes, the committee this candidate
The commission
acknowledges
doesn't have to do the campaign's work.
the public financing program confirms that it's the burden of the candidate and committee to demonstrate
Because
sufficiency of
presumably,
contributions.
this woman is a registered voter in San Francisco. Assume that to be a fact. Isn't it simple to just check voter registration?
We do check that when the committee supplies documentation of that. Committees are required under our regulations to provide proof documenting residency. It is not the job of the Ethics Commission, and I'm not speaking to this particular matter. I don't know the individual's name. But it is not the commission's job to take a list of 500 or 600 contributors and check each one of them independently. Committees are required to provide proof. When we look, we do look, for example, to make sure that the contributor listed is the contributor for whom the ID is being provided. In some cases, we found a contributor listed with a supporting documentation being a voter ID. We looked at that voter ID and found that, for example, the person associated with that voter ID on the city records was born in 1993. The contributor listed was in law practice much prior to that. So there were a couple of inconsistencies where the voter ID did not match the contributor. So those are also examples of where documentation is important.
What's the nature of the voter ID?
The voter ID number is the number assigned by the Department of Elections for the individual who has registered to vote in the city and county of San Francisco.
And we have access to that.
Yes, and those are the documents that committees will provide to us, demonstrating San Francisco residency.
Okay, yes, ma'am, you wanted to say.
Yes, Commissioner Kopp, Honorable. I wanted to say that this was not a business address on my license. It was a resident address that was the same as the one on my check. So I just wanted to make that clarification. I'm very thankful for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Commission. My name is Jeffrey Walls. I am a resident of San Francisco. I've lived here for 32 years. I was recently discriminated at my workplace due to the fact that I have HIV. I contacted several lawyers here in San Francisco to try to resolve my problem at work. I came to Ms. Alioto with my issues. She resolved the problem. She not only saved my job, but she saved my life. We've all been working very hard on this campaign. We appreciate your time today, and we hope that be some clarification that we can rectify the situation that we're in right now so that we continue to bring Ms. Alioto to the mayor's position. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Doug Comstock, and I would like to have those distributed to the Commissioners. I'm reading for Mike Mallon. His son is sick, and he could not make it today. A summary of the testimony from Mike Mallon. On or about January 2018, the San Francisco Ethics Commission technical staff began discussions and meetings to make preparations to modify the campaign contribution software. And I'm going to just skim over it because I won't have time to read it all. At no time was the Angela Alioto for Mayor Campaign Committee notified of any of this activity involving the company NetFile and the SFEC, or that changes would be taking place. At no time were they notified that it did take place. NetFile President David Montgomery was the first person to recognize the incompatibility between the two software suites, he himself being a software engineer. He fixed the problem by adding more network communication code to the treasurer side so that the two softwares could talk to each other again. NetFile President David Montgomery then notified the ethics department and told them of the fix. The department had concerns because another mayoral campaign, Jane Kim for mayor, was now having similar problems trying to submit their matching funds submissions. Their treasurer client software suite was having problems submitting their attachments. The Kim campaign is recorded in Angela Alioto's letter to the Commission of May 3rd as an exhibit attachment, which actually demonstrates that the Alioto Committee wasn't the only committee suffering from the failures of the Ethics Commission's mismanagement and miscompetence. This notification was sent to Nancy Warren in an email from David Montgomery, president of NetFile Corporation, on April 25th, 2018. 5 days after the Ethics Commission's hearing concerning this matter on April 20th, and 16 days after the Alioto campaign resubmission filing of April 9th, and 19 days after the Alioto campaign's initial filing on April 6th. The Ethics Commission knew of the problem, they knew of the seriousness of the problem, but they did not inform the Alioto Committee at any time. The incompetence and negligence of the San Francisco Ethics Commission Department staff has caused a great injustice, burden, and I will leave it to the legal professionals to add on any other tags that they so choose. Secondly, the Ethics Commission misinforming the Alioto Committee concerning the last day to submit acceptable contributions was such an error on their part that these hearings and considerations should have ended at that point of discovery with a positive judgment by the Ethics Commissioners for the Alioto campaign. When we finally had the proper software in place, we came up only $1,100 short with 46 cases to dispute. And Julie Veronese found 7 alone, totaling $690. Search for 46 to fix is weeks easier than trying to fix 300. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Nick Bolani. I've been a lifetime resident of San Francisco. And I want to talk about public trust, because that's what this commission is supposed to stand for, and that's what this department is supposed to stand for, the public trust. And I've sat through 2 of these meetings listening to this and listened to nothing that gives me any trust in the department. First off, the continuity of the documents that were given to the campaigns and then what was in the law. We talked about that last time. There was no continuity, and understandably, with everything that was rushed and all, it can happen. But that shouldn't be a candidate's problem. That should be on the department. The department should understand that. Number 2, definition of residency. You keep going back and forth and trying to figure out what a definition of a residency is. One of your commissioners was even was backed off because he didn't have a definition of residency for San Francisco. Yet he's a commissioner. That should say something right there. And then now we're talking about a software glitch that wasn't told to the campaigns, any of them. Commissioner Chair Chu, you asked why the Ethics Commission should tell each and every campaign about that. It's called public trust. the public trust needs to be. You were dealing with taxpayer dollars. The campaigns are doing everything they can to get it to you. It's all about the public trust. As a person of the public, as a person that's lived in this city for 44 years, I see no trust here. So that's what I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mark Labarle, and I'm a resident and voter in the city and county of San Francisco. I'm an attorney, been practicing for over 30 years in San Francisco, and I'm speaking for the second time to this committee because I'm concerned about the integrity and public profile of this committee, and that equity and public policy be recognized. And I am sure that this committee must give the campaign one more day for fundraising because it's clear that they were cut short. So as an initial matter, that seems to be black and white. In addition, with request...
Commissioner Kopp.
Counselor, from what the candidate said, you don't need one more day to raise funds. The funds are raised, and there are 11 donors to be verified as eligible donors.
That's fine.
Yeah, so that's
fine.
all it is, just verifying those 11.
And with respect to verification, it's clear in this technological data day that is all that needs to be done is to search as simple as a Google search, and one can see one's residence and if one is a verified voter in San Francisco. So I implore the commission to do equity and do justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Michael Davis, and I'm a resident and voter in San Francisco, as well as an attorney who's practiced here for about 15 to 20 years. I wanted to address two of the contributions on the list of 46 that were disqualified because they were drawn on the accounts on a business account, as opposed to a check from a personal account. With respect to these two contributions, they were each made by sole proprietors, and under the law, a sole proprietorship isn't a business entity, and the funds in a sole proprietorship are personal funds. And as personal funds, they should have been counted. I understand that in the case of a corporation or an LLC, where you don't have a voter, you would disqualify those. But to broadly disqualify any contribution because it's drawn on a business account when that business account may be that of an individual, I think you have to make those distinctions. And in the case of two, these were personal funds of the contributor, even though they were drawn on the contributor's business account and not their personal checking account. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Commissioners, my name is Peter Uckman. I'm here speaking to you a second time. I was here initially on April 20th to discuss some of the claims and issues that we were experiencing while going through correcting the initial, let's say, rejection from the Commission. While we were doing that, the first time when we were doing it, it took us, a group of 10 of us, about 3 days. The second time it took us, we had the full 4.5 days, plus the 2 days on the weekend, and again, it was a team about 10 of us. That is hundreds of man hours and women of everybody's hours included to get this stuff and to get this information verified and corrected. Through that process, we drove out to individuals' homes to see and if they were home, if they could provide us with pictures of any type of utility bill or even a copy of their driver's license. While we were doing this process, we were aggravating and antagonizing our donors and contributors, and the entire process, from finding out today, it seems kind of that it was for naught, because if we had found out that there was a glitch in the process, that we would have been able to limit the number of people that we're actually contacting. But due to the Ethics Commission inability to actually contact us to let us know about this, we actually had to go out and correct every single individual item. So I don't know what else to say besides for this entire process can be summed up as a process of terrible communication from one side to another, and an acceptance to accept errors and misjudgment and a lack of transparency. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Brown. I'm a San Francisco resident, a former employee of the City and County of San Francisco. I'm here because over the years, in 6 elections that I've experienced, that where there has been problems or where there's been new information that's not been available to candidates, the Department of Elections, and in this case the Ethics Commission, has gone out of their way to rectify or allow the candidates to rectify the problem. We're faced here with a situation where there has been a information glitch. And I would think that out of substantial equity, that we would allow this candidate a day to rectify what has been an understandable problem. I think we can stand on ceremony, we can stand on arbitrary deadlines, but we have an important election here with a candidate who has substantially complied in almost every respect. And I think under those circumstances, the Commission would be well served, and San Francisco would be well served for this, what I think is equitable remedy. Thank you very much. And by the way, having been in this courtroom as an advocate, I could say that this is not a good place to hold a hearing. You can't even see the commissioners from way back there. So find another hearing room, okay? And let Judge Roth or somebody else participate here, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
So move.
I'll second it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Charlie Marsteller. Today, not necessarily speaking for Friends of Ethics, but I will in the future. I did want to say that I think we've discovered today why Microsoft calls one program Word and the other one Excel. Because if you were a Word contractor, you would not confuse in any way that with Excel. So it seems to me that there would be a natural confusion inherent with the utilization of the terminology used by Mr. Montgomery and his firms. He has apparently 2 different wings of his operation, both with similar names. So the campaigns would probably assume of compatibility, which may or may not exist, or may otherwise confuse the users. The other thing is it's not every day that they're going to be tapping into the public financing law and attempting to qualify for matching funds. This is something we do every 4 years, and not necessarily the same people are involved, obviously. So that's why when the legislative intent was formed, we considered that it would be a user-friendly system and that we would have the ability to work with the public in making sure that the system worked. And I see that as a dual responsibility. I would say that in keeping with everything I've said, this is a little bit also like the situation you have when you're filing signatures for a ballot measure. You generally don't go right to the line to qualify those signatures when your threshold is 50,000 signatures. You generally go up and over substantially because you would expect disqualifications or troubles. So I think the campaign really should have been a little more aggressive and submitted a greater number of
persons and their contributions that they felt were qualified for public financing and for matching funds. So as a result, they would have that margin that they needed for safety. That was absent. And it should be that in the future, we might want to advise the campaigns not to confuse these two program systems and also to submit an excessive number of potential applicants. And if they're ready to go today, I would say let them submit their documentation right now.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Commissioners, good afternoon. I hadn't planned on talking because I just had a root canal done and half of my face is totally numb. But having said that, we're just asking for one day to give back the addresses and the people that make the 50,000, which is 11, that we believe are their correct addresses, where we believe that the commission made a mistake in saying that they are not their addresses. The example of the Italian music man who has his music store on Bush Street lives right on top, and that is his home. So those were sent back, and we're talking about 11. We have many more than 11, but not up to the 43 that would in fact have qualified. So we're just asking in this situation where we be able to show to the commissioners that at a minimum 11 of them are in fact their homes, and as such we should have qualified. We're talking about a situation here where a lot of people depended on this funding. We did hand in 53,000. We can't expect people to tell us that they live in San Francisco. If they don't, maybe we should have handed in 70,000. I don't know, but hopefully the commission will consider helping the candidate and the person who has been this law was written for. In other words, the committee to help, because we have salaries, we have all sorts of debt, because we were dependent on this, knowing that these were these people's homes. And it would be really wonderful if we were given the one day to show that indeed those 11 names are where those people live, such that we would qualify.
Madam Chairman, I'd be recognized. Look, I've heard 2 afternoons now, campaign rhetoric. 80% of it, 20% is fact. You told us you have 11 donors whose proof of residency can be established, and that will meet the dollar requirement, correct?
Correct.
All right. Can you do that in a couple hours tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah. So if we adopted a resolution that gave you till noon tomorrow, would that give
Yes.
you that time?
Yes.
That's the end of the case.
Yes.
Unless somebody just wants to be on television, that's what I'm going to move.
Commissioner Koppel, though, I would remind you, as you noted at the top of this meeting of our session, that the determination of the executive director on the eligibility of the campaign to receive public financing was final, and that, for at least in my mind, the purposes of our discussion today was to understand the allegations from the campaign about the software problem, which she alleges were fraud on the part of the commission director and staff, and what problems flowed from the software problem, which I understand that it was fixed on the date of the 25th, that the campaign was able to submit all of the documents that they wanted to submit to support their application for public financing, and confirmed that. And then the executive director made her determination after reviewing that submission, and determined that as noted in her letter, that they were short by $1,076. So
my question is, this is on the agenda just to hear talk so that we can understand the system and not give relief to an applicant?
Yes, it is to understand whether or not there was fraud on the part of the commission with regard to the software problem that prevented the campaign from submitting the required documentation. and that what I have heard is that the software problem did not prevent the campaign from submitting all of the documents, and that the documents fell short is separate and apart from the relief that I would be considering today.
Okay, that isn't true. We learned the day before. We learned on the 24th that while Amy Lee was speaking with the treasurer, Leah Sarborough, we learned that Amy did not have the backup. We thought Amy had the backup. They knew that it had malfunctioned. In order for us to come in here today and prove fraud, that would require an entire discovery. That would require deposition, subpoenas, and everything else. That's not why we're here today. We're here today with new information, is that we did not know what the department knew, and as such, we overworked ourselves on documents that the department could have had uploaded if the person they have as a subcontractor had uploaded it. We're just asking for relief in this room today. We're not. This isn't a trial on fraud. As I said, I've spent 18 years of my life not suing San Francisco. That's very important to me. Very important to me. I turn away cases monthly because I don't want to sue the city. But I have to tell you here, the injustice that we have been through, where the amount of investigating of these people, where they have investigated, the department has intentionally investigated ways to find us not able to apply. We are the citizens. The department should be investigating reasons we are able to apply. This isn't a fight. We're supposed to be on the same team, which is why I haven't taken a case against the city and county of San Francisco for 18 years. We are on the same team. You're supposed to help us as we help you.
So, Ms. Alioto, I want to understand. So you are saying that you are not here because there was fraud on the part of the commission?
We are here because there was new information that was learned after the fact, and we didn't know it. And so that new information enabled us to have another appeal when the department had asked that nothing ever be appealed again. But again, Madam Chairwoman, we are not here to fight. We're here to try to get along and work together such that the system works. What's wrong with a system working?
Well, your letter to me last week was alleging grievous errors and omissions that you have a good faith belief are fraudulent on the part of the Director of Ethics, Ms. Leanne Pelham.
And
so
exactly.
On that basis, that's why we are here today, to understand whether or not, in my mind, and the minds of our commissioners, whether or not there was fraud. And now you're saying that you're backing away from what.
No, I'm not backing away from anything. If you would like to go to court on those causes of action, I don't back away from anything. I just am hesitant to do it, yeah. But do I put something in a letter to a chairwoman of a commission of ethics and not believe it with my heart and soul? No, I don't. I believe with my heart and soul that the department has done everything to not help us, and indeed omitted telling us that they had an error in a system I know nothing about, that you all contracted with. So no, if you would like an evidentiary hearing on fraud, then that's what we will have. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for us to work together.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Kopp.
Yeah. Look, I don't care how many times you've sued the city or don't sue the city. It counts for zero. In fact, I resent that this proceeding has been turned in to a quasi-campaign rally. Number two, the letter sent to you by the deputy city attorney makes no mention of having to prove fraud. I have never seen any allegation of fraud with respect to our staff or with respect to this vaunted net file or whatever it is, or David Montgomery. The letter to you asked for further information regarding the new evidence of malfeasance.
Right.
And I don't know, Madam Chair, if you want to take testimony from other people. I see a couple people standing as if they want to testify, but I say we've spent enough on this matter. The appellant or respondent. Oh, and also let me add that I raised the question of why this was on the calendar. And Madam Chairwoman, you stated that upon receipt of the letter from Ms. Alioto, you ordered to put on calendar. So if it's on calendar, notwithstanding the April 20th action, it's there to be acted on. And I now make a motion to extend until noon tomorrow the time which the applicant for public financing can submit proof of residency of the 11 or 15 or 25, I don't care how many you have, residencies in San Francisco by those who've donated money in the amounts or between the amounts required by law. That's my motion.
And I'll second that motion. And Ms. Alioto, before you leave.
Yes, Commissioner.
I still don't understand why we're here today when you were on notice in late April, 18th of April, that your submission was insufficient. And your campaign supposedly had the supporting documents, and they should have had them here on April 25th. I wasn't here at the meeting that gave the cutoff and said no further appeals. So I'm willing to go along with Commissioner Kopp. But it's not the fault of anything on this commission or its staff that puts you in this posture. It's the fact that you, when you were put on notice by, certainly at the latest, by April 18th, that you didn't come up with the documentation which you should have been able to come up with in 24 hours.
Right. Commissioner, we learned
on...
on...
that's supposed to keep these records.
I understand that.
Not NetFile.
We had the records. It was on April 24th, the day before, that we learned the commission didn't have them because they were not uploaded.
You knew they didn't have it because they said they wanted them. They knew they didn't have it. That's what they were asking you to do, to submit them. So okay, well, I think all this thing about NetFile is just throwing sand at an elephant. But I'm willing to go along with Commissioner Kopp and give you till noon Tuesday, and the staff is to supply the same criteria that they've used for every other candidate in determining whether or not the information you supply meets the requirements. It's a statute, and we aren't interested in playing favorites. And part of the reasons that I will support this is that I think public financing is a good thing, and I would like to see you have it. But you've got to comply with the law.
Right. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Commissioner Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think several comments were made today about public trust and trust in the commission staff. This is the second time we've discussed this issue, and I think that we need to go back to how we got here. This committee is not the only committee that filed for public financing, and other committees that file under the same rule, same set of expectations. I think some of them had filed earlier, expecting that there would be the expected request for additional information. In this particular case, I think the committee had admitted that they filed at the very last possible minute. And I think out of the abundance of fairness and transparency, this commission at the last meeting had granted extra time, which to me was pretty unprecedented, to one committee to submit additional information with the expectation that all of us agreed that that would be a final decision. And I remember we asked the committee, could they live with that condition? And they said, yes, the executive director's determination would be final. My understanding was there was a allegation that for
Net
Professional
file,
and
right.
Netflix, the two different things, because there was an allegation, a serious allegation against the staff of fraudulent behavior. That's why we had this item. But my concern is, number one, it was agreed upon that the decision was finalized based on the conditions. And the second thing was, I'm very concerned that it seems that we're shifting the goalposts. We're giving them another additional day. It has nothing to do with the staff and the commission's duties. It is not the commission's responsibility to inform everybody of what the net professional issue is, because if that's the case, then we owe it everybody, all the applicants. And if we were to, again, allow the extra day, then other folks may come in and just say, hey, you know, it happened to us too. We want an extra day. So I do think that I haven't heard any new evidence to show that the reason why the committee had requested additional time, which originally was based on the allegation against the staff. And going back to the decision that the commission made at the April meeting, which was the additional time was granted for the committee to provide all the information for the staff to review, and the staff's decision would be finalized. And I haven't seen any compelling new evidence to show that, you know, that agreement should be abandoned.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. I'd like to associate myself with your comments and make my own motion to affirm the final determination of the Executive Director regarding the eligibility of the committee to receive public financing. Second. Is there any additional further public comment?
Got a motion pending.
So we've got two motions. Well, we have two motions.
Well, what's the second motion?
My motion was to affirm the final determination of the Executive Director regarding the eligibility of the campaign to receive public financing. So we have two motions. Is there any further public comment? No. Okay. So Commissioner Kopp, your motion is pending. It was seconded by Commissioner Rennie, and that was to grant the committee until noon tomorrow to submit additional documentation in support of their public financing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Would you call the roll?
Okay. Executive Director Pelham, could you call the roll? I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I didn't get a chance to jump in, and since I'm new here, I'm waiting my turn. I just wanted to say I did watch the hearing on the 20th. I've read both the staff reports for the earlier meetings and this one. I do share the remarks of Commissioner Rennie. I think this isn't a problem of net file. This is a problem of the documentation for the $50,000 and $500, but I also agree with Commissioner Lee that over the time there has been plenty of opportunity to correct those submittals. If at this hearing the committee had come in and submitted the 11 or 15 and the documentation and put them on the record, then I would be prepared to say that we should consider it because it's in the record. But at this point, to give an extra day, I feel that it's not appropriate based on the actions that the committee, that this commission had taken previously in establishing deadlines, which unfortunately can always be harsh. And I just wanted to explain why I wasn't concurring with the motion of Commissioner Kopp. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Director Pelham, could you please take a roll call vote on Commissioner Kopp's motion?
So this is on Commissioner Kopp's motion to allow through noon tomorrow for the submission of any additional information.
Yes.
On the 11 items Ms. Alioto referenced. Correct. Commissioner Ambrose?
No.
Commissioner Ambrose, no. Commissioner Chu?
No.
Commissioner Chu, no. Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Lee, no. Commissioner Kopp?
Aye.
Commissioner Kopp, aye. Commissioner Rennie?
Aye.
Commissioner Rennie, aye. The motion fails on a 3-2 vote with, or a 2-3 vote rather, with Commissioners Ambrose, Chu, and Lee in the dissent.
And then could you please call the roll call vote for the second motion?
The second motion is by Commissioner Chu, seconded by Commissioner Lee to sustain the final determination of May 2nd about the Alioto for mayor ineligibility to receive public funding for the June election. Commissioner Ambrose?
Aye.
Commissioner Ambrose votes aye. Commissioner Chu?
Aye.
Commissioner Chu, aye. Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee, aye. Commissioner Kopp?
No.
Commissioner Kopp, no. Commissioner Rennie?
No.
Commissioner Rennie, no. That motion passes on a 3-2 vote with Commissioners Kopp and Rennie in the dissent.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, before we leave this subject, I have a statement to the Executive Director. I've been on this commission a little short of 16 months now, and I would have thought that there would have been a session to educate commissioners who are new to the commission about the public financing responsibility, including the details which are discussed in both the applicant's documents and in your documents. And I don't know if the other commissioners who have been appointed have received such lesson or indoctrination, but I suggest it should be done, and I know for myself I would like to schedule a time for the staff who are dealing with this subject to educate me on the details of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Kopp. As you know, we do provide, as possible and according to the commissioner's schedules and bandwidth, as many sessions as possible. Certainly, we can make a detailed session available to any and all commissioners individually or as a group if that's useful to you.
The other question I have is, how long have we had a contract with this, whatever it is, net?
So the question is, how long have we had a contract with NetFile?
I understand we've had a contract with them for about 7 or 8 years.
And is that renewed annually?
No, it is the contract of terms I don't have on the top of my head.
All
But we
right,
can get that information
I would
to
like a
you.
memorandum on when it began, when it was renewed, when it expires, and whether competitive bidding was used, or whether a request for proposals was used, or whether neither was used, and whoever was executive director 7 or 8 years ago simply selected this company.
Okay. Item number 7. So the items 7, 8, and 9 are all policy matters. A policy prioritization plan, discussion possible action on Supervisor Kim's proposed amendments to CFRO, as well as discussion of the monthly staff policy report. And I would propose holding these over to the June meeting to allow our newest commission member, who was only appointed this morning, to be able to get up to speed and do a deeper dive, and we can have a fuller and more robust conversation at our next meeting.
Yes, anytime the commission chooses to gather as a group, it would, of course, be a noticed public meeting, and the public could attend.
Thank you. So this, holding over item 7, 8, and 9 to the June meeting, we'll proceed now to item number 10, discussion of monthly staff enforcement report.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Chair. So I just want to clarify as far as item 7, 8, and 9. It was staff's understanding that only items 7 and 9 would be continued, and that we would hear Supervisor Kim's item. But if that's the direction.
To 8 and
So, because Commissioner Ambrose was just appointed this morning to the commission, and that to give her the benefit of coming up to speed on all of our policies, I was proposing that item 7, which is the policy prioritization, as well as the monthly staff report, and item 9 would be held over until our June meeting to allow for her to come up to speed, and then we can have a fuller and more complete and robust discussion. But item 8 is someone from Supervisor Kim's office here. I'm sorry, I can't see from this vantage point.
And through the chair, I did read the proposed legislation, and I'm familiar with Supervisor Kim's proposal, so if they're prepared to go ahead, there's no need to continue it.
Okay, so staff has requested a brief recess to be able to confirm with Supervisor Kim's office that they would be able to attend and present on item 8, so why don't we break until 2:51, 10 minutes?
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
We are back in session. So we'll be taking public comment on items 7 and 9, which are being held over to the June meeting, and then proceeding to item number 8. Any public comment on items 7 and 9? No public comment. Item 8, discussion and possible action on Supervisor Kim's proposed amendments to the San Francisco Campaign Finance Reform Ordinance, Article 1, Chapter 1 of the San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code, Board File Number 170868.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Pat Ford, Policy Analyst. The memo that's here attached to item 8 gives a brief summary of File 170868. This is an ethics ordinance that is authored and sponsored by Supervisor Jane Kim. Supervisor Kim appeared before the Commission at the regular November meeting to urge you to consider her ordinance and to have staff work with her staff to continue to develop it and refine it into something that the Commission could approve. Since that November meeting, Mr. Kundert and I have been working with Supervisor Kim's staff to review the ordinance, provide them with some research about certain provisions that were included in it, and to make recommendations to them about what we believe would make the ordinance the best possible ordinance to bring to the Commission for approval. So through that process, we were able to make several changes to the ordinance, and Supervisor Kim amended the ordinance last week. So the version of File 170868 that's attached here is the way that it currently is pending before the Board of Supervisors. So if the Commission were to approve this today, it would allow the Rules Committee to consider this and potentially move it on to the full board for a vote. So I'll give you a quick overview of the different provisions that are here and then make myself available for questions if you have any. So I broke this memo down by the different provisions that are here. So Section A, beginning on page 2, refers to Section 1.115E in the ordinance. Essentially, this would create a requirement that candidates sign under penalty of perjury a statement attesting that they have not failed to report any, essentially, contributions that were made to them by a different committee. And this is what you would call a non-monetary contribution, where a candidate coordinates to some degree with the committee such that an expenditure that that committee makes counts under the law as a contribution to the candidate's committee, and therefore the candidate would need to report it. So this attestation is the candidate saying, in no instances did I coordinate with the committee such that that committee's expenditures need to be reported by me, and I'm failing to report that. So essentially, it's a non-coordination attestation. Secondly, Section B refers to Section 1.128C. This would simply require that the voter information pamphlet state which candidates for certain city elective offices had elected to participate in the voluntary expenditure ceiling. This is different than the expenditure ceiling that applies to publicly financed candidates. Those candidates must participate in the expenditure ceiling. That's not voluntary. The voluntary expenditure ceiling is for all other candidates aside from mayoral and supervisorial candidates, because those candidates are not eligible to participate in public financing. They may just choose to have an expenditure ceiling. And essentially, this amendment to 1.128C would note which candidates chose to do that in the voter information pamphlet, so voters would see that. I actually found that this was a past practice that was discontinued in 2009. There's not a lot of legislative history on that, so I apologize for not being able to tell you why that was discontinued, but this would reinstate that practice. Third section is C and refers to Section 1.152A1. And this, frankly, corrects a mistake that's in the code. Publicly financed candidates have to file threshold reports, and what this allows the staff to do is to know when there is a candidate in a particular race that has raised funds meeting a certain threshold. The significance of that is that that now enables, once a candidate hits that threshold, that enables any candidate in the race, or any other candidate, I should say, to now potentially file an application to participate in the public financing program. So it's important that these reports come in so that staff knows. So then when an opponent applies, we're aware of whether or not this threshold's been hit. The appropriate threshold should be $5,000. The code states 10. This would fix that. So it brings it into line with what the appropriate threshold is. Section D refers to 1.156. And this would... This clarifies what staff must report to the Board of Supervisors when staff makes the report about public financing. So the code already requires staff to provide a report providing basically statistics and data about how much money was spent, general administrative data. This language that would be added would also require staff to talk about the administration, efficacy, and operation. So this would probably require staff to do more analysis, provide the Board of Supervisors and the mayor with some kind of evaluation of whether or not the program was effective. And then section 1.165, this refers to third-party spending. So it's already staff's practice to make information that's disclosed about third-party spending available online. This would codify it and essentially require that staff make available on the Ethics Commission website information that voters or anyone in the public can review to inform themselves about third-party spending in city elections. So with that, I will make myself available for questions.
Pat, Section D, the clarifying contents of the public financing report, where there's an additional obligation imposed by the ordinance to do analysis, is that something that is would be burdensome? Is it something that we do already? We just don't make it available or incorporate it into the board report? Like, what level of additional work would this require?
Frankly, I think this is something that staff is already in the practice of doing. We're constantly evaluating the public financing program. In fact, it's one of the Commission's policy prerogatives right now, as you know, that we're in this process of reviewing the code, the regulations, our internal practices, the forms, everything. So to answer your question, no, I don't think that if this provision were to become law, it would add any burden onto staff.
Because the language is quite broad. I mean, you could provide an update, but it's an analysis. But if you're comfortable with the language as it stands, then
I'm confident that we'd be able to meet this requirement.
Thank you. Commissioner Kopp, did you have a question?
Yeah. You know why the mayor and board of supervisors aren't included in this voluntary expenditure ceiling?
Yes. So candidates for mayor or supervisor can participate in the public financing program, and that program has its own expenditure ceiling. That's the individual expenditure ceiling, and that is actually mandatory. So anyone who participates in the program must do it. This is sort of an alternative for all other candidates if they want to somehow limit their expenditures and be,
And secondly, the law allows a candidate who declares he or she won't spend more than a specific amount then to change that commitment. In other words, it's not mandatory.
Once
you have a line here saying such candidates are not required to abide by the VEC on page 2.
Right. Yeah, I apologize for the ambiguity. That refers to candidates generally. Those who do choose to participate must abide by it once they indicate that's all.
Commissioner Rennie.
A couple of questions. One is, what impact does this have on the present AAOC legislation that we sent back down to them? Is it going to be held up until this gets added to it?
No, this ordinance should have no impact on the ACAO. So that's actually one of the things that we had to work with Supervisor Kim's office about, was making certain that was the case. A little bit of background. So this ordinance was running simultaneously to the ACAO. And when the ACAO reached the board for the joint hearing on April 3rd, Supervisor Kim moved in that meeting to include elements from this ordinance in the ACAO. And 3 of those were carried. Subsequently, the commission, at staff's recommendation, brought a 4th in for consistency. So those 4 had to come out of this ordinance, and that was part of the amendment procedure that went on last week. It was to get those others out so that there weren't any contradictions between the 2 ordinances.
Then secondly, this non-coordination attestation, isn't the law already that a candidate can't coordinate his or her activity with an independent expenditure committee?
It is. This doesn't really change the terms of that law. If a candidate coordinates with a committee, already it is the case that the candidate must report expenditures by that committee that were coordinated as contributions. And this wouldn't change that or add on to it in any way.
Well, does it add some additional penalty if they've sent this attestation in and it's wrong? Do they get punished more than if they had never sent it in at all?
I think so. I think that's one of the 2 purposes of this. One would be it would be an additional violation that the candidate could potentially be penalized for. And secondly, it would serve an educational purpose, that this is forcing all candidates to acknowledge that they are officially aware of this rule. Even though ignorance of the law is not a defense, I think that it's still good during all of our processes with candidates to make them as aware as possible of the rules that apply to them.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee or Commissioner Ambrose, any additional questions for Mr. Ford? No? Okay. Public comment?
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. I'm Charlie Marsteller. We've been attending meetings that have been ongoing for some period on this bill, interested party meetings, and it's been very interesting. There's been large attendance, and it's consistent and of good quality. There was some thought to getting into public financing and, for instance, the Seattle voucher system in this ordinance, but I think it might be that the supervisor would want to wait to discuss that with the Ethics Commission as a secondary bill, a follow-up bill. Don't know. But I did want to say that she suspended this consideration of this legislation until after the mayoral campaign because she didn't want to make it seem like this was in concert with her campaign for running for mayor. You asked about penalties under Section A. I was going to say I did get her to agree to that they have to sign in blood, but bamboo shoots under the fingernails are not included as a penalty. But I do want to say that I'm glad to see that this public financing and adherence to the voluntary expenditures ceiling is going to be in the voter guide to the fuller extent as it was in 2009. And let's see. We should be in pretty good shape because there is a staff person working on this bill right now, and I suspect that it'll be proceeding through the board. It seems like that's the signal that we're going to get. So in short order, we should see this legislation going into force, which means you would want to look at your implementation and administrative requirements. They are looking for alternatives to third-party reporting because right now it's limited to the website. There was some discussion about doing a mailer, which would be a report issued by this body to the public, but they decided that would be onerous administratively and also in budget. So they're now looking at sticking and codifying it to the website. And as you know, Shista Sheikh has always done a good post-election analysis of public financing, and I'm very happy that they're adding additional ideas at the board. I think that's all I wanted to tell you. There are a couple of other things, but we'll be talking about it again. Are you going to vote on this today? Is that the intent? Very good. Well, I would urge your support for this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? No. All right. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we adopt the recommendations of the staff, that we approve the ordinance as it appears in attachment 1.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's approved unanimously. Okay. Item number 10, discussion of monthly staff enforcement report, including an update on various programmatic and operational highlights of the enforcement program's activities since the last monthly meeting.
Thank you, Chair Chu and Commissioners. So you've seen the report. A few things to highlight. As you know, it's been about 6 weeks since you got one of these. And so the numbers reflect that period of time. They also reflect, of course, that the former Director of Enforcement, Jessica Bloom, has left. And I think you're aware that I'm acting in her place. Commissioner Kopp asked me at the recess what that means for our investigative staff. And what that means is that we have 4 investigators officially, but perhaps operating at 3.5 cylinders, given the responsibilities that I have had toward direction. So I've not had the opportunity to spend as much time on investigation as I may have wished, and you'll see that to some degree reflected in these numbers. So within those last 6 weeks, the executive director determined that 15 complaints merited dismissal. That leaves us with 49 complaints in preliminary review and 79 under open investigation. The age of matters in preliminary review, you'll see, is diminishing with time. It's now less than 3 months.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, we're pleased to report that the investigators are working very hard to review complaints as they come in, because the practice historically was that we would be torn between investigating old matters but also contemplating new ones, so we're able to improve our efficiency at considering whether new matters belong to our jurisdiction or not. But the average age of investigations is still up. I think it's around, 10.5 months? And that's what I referred to with respect to our staffing. So a handful of those investigations are quite old because they are matters that we, in a sense, inherited when the entire staff changed over. Several of the oldest matters are mine. And so I hope to continue working at those. I can assure you that staff is sensitive to any statutes of limitation that may apply in any of these individual matters. You know that we are operating now under new enforcement regulations. You adopted those on January 19th, and we transmitted them to the board for their consideration. The clerk of the board wrote back on March 20th to alert us that those were now in effect. Staff continues to develop new processes to implement those regulations. As you know, regulations interpret ordinances, they interpret the charter, but there is also the business of interpreting the regulations themselves, and that's sort of the stage that we're moving into. So we appreciate your patience as we develop an understanding of how to operate under those new regs. There will be a small number of items for which we'll operate under the old regulations, and I can explain those as they arise. One of the newest things you've already been exposed to, that was today's consent calendar, where stipulations can be handled very expeditiously. And then finally, I will point out that we previously had, I think, just one last respondent who was on a payment plan through the commission. That's Kim Shri Malfas. And as I understand it, she has now paid up in full. And I believe that the new practice will be not to permit payment plans. So I think, unless I'm mistaken, this will be the last time that you'll see one of those. I'm happy to field any questions. I'll remind commissioners that under agenda item 12, when we go into closed session, you can ask specific questions within reason about open investigations. But if you have questions about the report, I'm happy to field those now.
Commissioner Kopp?
Yeah. There is a reference to Jacqueline Norman. That was referred 3 years ago to the Bureau of Delinquent Revenues, and the status is the same statement mailed, the debtor's statement of assets form. I don't care about whether it's registered mail, but what's the date that it was mailed? And secondarily, why isn't the date of mailing on any of the four which bear that as the status?
I will double check. I don't know the answer to that question. This information we receive on a monthly basis from the Bureau of Delinquent Revenue, I can go back to them and ask that they include the date of any actions that they take.
Well, can you ask us specifically why something that was referred over 3 years ago now, $9,000, hasn't been collected?
I can ask them, yes.
Hmm?
I will ask them.
Yeah, and I suggest putting the date of any such mailing in the future.
And Mr. Pierce, I would also like to ask that if you could get a better sense from the Department of Delinquent Revenues, a sense of the process that's going to follow from and after this statement, because as Commissioner Kopp noted, Jacqueline Norman was 2015, Chris Jackson 2013. This has been languishing for quite some time. So what are the next steps from and after the statement of assets, and what would be the possible timing, if their time frame in terms of finalizing the collection would be very helpful.
Certainly.
Any other questions from commissioners? Public comment?
I would only, Charlie Marsteller, for the record again, I would only say you should have been here 10 years ago. And we had not an idea really what was going on with enforcement. And it's totally turned around now, and it's much more structured and certainly supportable by the public in comparison with the past. I did want to draw the new commissioner's attention to Ms. Sweet's line item on page 3. That had a major mix of public financing involved with that issue. And that is quite an embarrassing number given the fact that public funds were involved. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think we have enough of a structured program now where that will just not languish. And that I promised many times personally before public bodies in 2000 that we were going to have concurrent and proactive audit and enforcement for public financing when that measure went before the voters, and it only passed by 52.6% of the vote. So we do have an obligation to the residents of the city to be very actively concurrent and proactive on our audit enforcement. And I know those systems are now in place. But I do want to thank the staff for an excellent system. And it's certainly looking very tight. And I won't be bringing in any donut holes anymore.
Thank you. Other comment? Okay. Item 11, discussion of Executive Director's Report, an update of various programmatic and operational highlights of Ethics Commission staff activities since the Commission's last monthly meeting. The written report, which is available at the Commission office and on its website, covers a range of topics such as the Commission's budget, outreach activities, campaign finance disclosures and public financing programs, audit program, lobbyist program, campaign consultant program, permit consultant program, major developer program, and future staff projects. any of these subjects may potentially be part of the director's presentation or discussed by the commission. Director Pelham?
Thank you, Chair. And Commissioners, for agenda item 11, I have a somewhat lengthy report since it's been a few weeks, again, since we've reported in a regular commission meeting on activities. As a follow-up to what you heard from Jeff Pierce, I do want to just make a couple brief staff announcements first. Jeff Pierce, who's been one of our senior investigators, as he said, has taken on interim duties as our acting Director of Enforcement and Legal Affairs. And so we very much appreciate his acknowledgement of that responsibility and the call of duty. I also am very pleased to announce that I have designated our Chief Programs Officer, Gayatri Taikandil, to be our acting deputy director. And as you know, Gayatri's been in charge of our engagement and compliance division and working on a lot of operational issues for us over the past couple of years that she's been with us now. First as a FUSE executive fellow, and then over the past almost year as head of the engagement and compliance division. She'll be working closely with me on all kinds of office-wide, externally facing, and other issues. So you'll have a chance to meet with her in coming meetings. So she'll be acting in that capacity. And then I'm also pleased to announce that for our senior auditor position, you may know that that was in recruitment based on, after we completed our process, based on an assessment about what that position required for the development of the program at this time in both our campaign and lobbying development programs. It was my judgment that we need to reclassify that position to better reflect the more senior level of duties, management and development of program-wise. So in the interim, until we reclassify, I'm happy to announce that Amy Lee will be acting as a lead auditor and providing more day-to-day duties as interim audit supervisor to the team and to me as we get through this very busy period.
Director Pelham, just a question about that reclassification. Is that
Yes.
something that is a matter of course? That do we expect to be able to receive that? Is it from HR or?
We've had yes, thank you for that question. We've had conversations with both the Human Resources Department and the Mayor's Office, and there is support for that. So to my next segue to the next brief point here is that under Table 1, where you see the positions that are listed, that list has winnowed down over time, but because of the last 6 weeks of extraordinary activity as a commission, I have not been able to make progress on getting further winnowing down that list. The good news is that our senior IS business analyst position, we're expecting that should be posted early this week. It's been finalized. We just have to literally put it on the website and turn the switch on. So with that information in terms of a staffing update, my report contains a variety of information about ongoing election activities. We have on the electronic version online links to our campaign finance dashboards and the information that we're providing on a regular basis about candidate expenditure ceilings and candidate public financing disbursements. We're very excited about the feedback we've been getting from public and press about those resources to enable people to see what's happening as those reports come in. And we've been hearing that it's very useful for people to be able to go in and search the information in the way they want it 24/7. We continue to look to how to improve that, but the signs have been good. So as you and others who are observing these activities get your hands on that system, we would welcome any further suggestions and feedback for improving it. We came out of a very busy annual economic interest filing period, and we are following up with individuals who have not filed timely statements. As of May 2nd, we had about 95% of electronic filers file timely with our office. As you know, there are about 3,000 more who are in the city who do not currently file with us, and we hope to see that change over time. We've been notifying we've been notifying board and commission members about new provisions of the law that apply to them, and we were pleased to see that we had about 92% of e-filers were able to sync their sunshine and ethics training at the same time as doing their Form 700 filing. So we think this is a more seamless, effective way for people to get their requirements completed, and then for the public to be able to see where people are in terms of compliance. So over 90%, that's not ideal, but we're still hoping to see that grow over time.
So, Director Pelham, just a question about the Form 700 filing, because as you know, there was a new ordinance that I think went into effect in January that stated that if an appointed board or commission member has not filed their Form 700, that they would be prohibited from participating in any of deliberations of their commission or board. Of the 95% who have filed and the 5% remaining unfiled, were any of those board or commission members who should not be participating in their meetings?
I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but we can get you that information. I can tell you we are following up. We provided notice before April 16th to board and commission members, and we have efforts that are planned and ongoing to reach out to all board and commission members so that they're aware. Also to let department heads identify board and commission secretaries so that we can get information in the hands of everybody who might need to support that new process.
Right. I will note that in your summary of revenues that the statement of the Form 700 late filing fees are down significantly from last year. So I think that's a testament to the work that you're doing, at Gayatri is doing, to make sure that everyone knows about their filing obligations.
Lastly, I guess I would just point you as a point of reference to the technology update. I asked Stephen Massey and his team to put together the kind of current state of projects that are ongoing to help us move into a fully electronic or digital era so that we can remove paper burden filings, both on the filers end as well as on the staff processing end. So there are a number of projects here broken out by campaign finance, lobbyist, and conflict of interest, and other programs which have not been able to have the kind of staff time and devotion to get paper filings online for searchable purposes. We do have 2 new as-needed staff who've joined us this past month who will be with us through the end of the fiscal year and then beyond as well, we hope, to help get some of those paper-based systems online so at least some of the information can be more readily available and accessible to the public than has been the case. So with that, I just wanted to highlight that. Stephen Massey is also here if you have any specific questions about any of our IT projects. But as you can see, it's been a very busy election season and promises to be a very busy rest of the fiscal year for us.
I have just one follow-up question for you, Director Pelham, and then I actually have one for Stephen as well. Is there any update on the budget for the upcoming fiscal year?
We've been in conversation with the mayor's office and also with the controller's office as we refine our performance measures for the coming year. I think I'll have hopeful news to report at next month's meeting. The mayor's office is still finalizing its budget package and budget documents. But I think that what we have asked for, a modest request, I will have good news to report back to the commission next month.
Because just for our new commissioner's benefit, interim Mayor Farrell has requested that all departments submit budgets with a reduction. And that for us would mean cutting staff. And we're still in the process of trying to staff up to the right level, given the as Jeff had mentioned, a lot of the turnover that happened. So hopeful that we will not have to cut staff for the upcoming year. Commissioner Kopp?
Yes, 2 questions. How many people who are obligated by law to file Form 700s didn't file by the time to file?
Commissioner, for those who were required to file electronically with us is a subset of the overall group of designated officials and employees in the city. There are 510 individuals that are required to file with us. Those are department heads, elected officials, board and commission members, and 95% of that group filed on time. So I haven't done the math that quickly in my head, but 95% of the 510 who were required to file electronically filed on time.
All right. And those who didn't aren't eligible to vote if they're on a board or commission.
That's correct, and we're in the process of making sure they know that.
Shouldn't that be included in a report on this subject?
Yes, and I think we will have that information next month for you.
Okay. Second question is disclosure of behested payments by city commissioners or board members. Have we got that set up? That took effect 1st of January.
Yes, we do. We do have that system set up. individuals are able to file their behested payments online. Like other laws that recently took effect, that's something we continue to reach out to affected people to let them know about that requirement. And we have more work to do on that front.
Can this commission get a report from you next month?
Yes.
On that?
Happy to.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I just had a question for Stephen, if you would be so kind. It relates to data SF vendor, I think Socrata. They're discontinuing their existing service where scanned paper documents are going to be scanned in and posted. So if they're discontinuing, when will that happen? And more importantly, do we have an interim workaround to bridge that time when it's going to go away, and what's the plan B to substitute?
Sure. I can answer that question. So we were notified by the mayor's office that this CRADA, who is the vendor for the data SF system, would be discontinuing a particular feature of their open data system, which is where they would host scanned paper PDF type documents on their server, and we could essentially upload unlimited documents at no charge. No charge to our department.
So this is a vendor that provides services to all of the city, not
all
just
city
the Ethics
departments,
Commission.
and the mayor's office is essentially the holder of the contract. So we have access to the system where we can post data, we can post PDF documents, and we end up posting both. We post data about the filings that are coming in, and then you can actually view the form itself on the service. They are continuing the data service, so we can continue to post essentially what looks like spreadsheets. They are discontinuing the posting service where we posted the PDFs. Instead of creating a new way of posting scanned paper documents, we felt it was a better use of time to just convert the forms that are going to be affected by this change to electronic filing forms. And so we're going to go through a process over the next couple of weeks to convert those few forms that are affected into an electronic form process, and we will continue to post those online. So as far as any effect on the public, they will continue to have access to all this information, and it'll actually be better in the end than it was before, when they had this scanned paper document process.
Then going forward, we won't be posting additional PDFs. Then you'll convert them into electronic files. Then.
So essentially, the filer will fill out what looks like a electronic version of the form online, and that will transfer the information to a site that we are now hosting, and it will automatically post a PDF copy of their filing there. And we will also post the data that comes across in some of these forms to the data SF system to be sort of searched and sorted and such.
Thank you. Commissioner
Would
Kopp.
you identify yourself, please?
Stephen Massey. I'm the Director of Technology Services.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Stephen? Great. Okay, well, public comment?
Charlie Marsteller again. I did have two questions. Are the behested payment reports that are filed reflected in some way on our website? Yes. That's the answer. Very good. And our voter officers of the city and county who file, I assume they file directly with ethics. And not, for instance, a port commissioner would not file with the port commissioner filing officer, but major appointed officials and elected officials would file with ethics, correct?
Board and commission members, department heads, and elected officials are required to file electronically with the commission, so board and commission members also file directly with us.
Okay, and those are just charter committees or commissions or boards, or are they...
Yeah, I think it's beyond that. It's not
the whole spectrum of officers
board and commission members
who are voting.
Yeah, they're listed in the they're listed on the conflict of interest code.
Yes.
At section 3.10 something or another.
That's right.
But that list of individuals, the list of positions, are required to file with us.
Okay, there's probably not much that's being overlooked in that section of the law, I hope. because we don't want to find out somebody's has lost their ability to vote as a result of not filing and have them slip through the cracks. And undoubtedly somebody in the public will call it to their attention, but it's good for ethics to know. The other thing is are we able to amend the SEI Form 700? Because I know that process is a state law. It's under the PRA directly. So if we wanted to put in a notice to the applicant that they have to file by a certain deadline or they will lose their ability to vote before their commission or board that they sit on?
Through the chair, if the Form 700 Statement of Economic Interests are documents promulgated by the state, the
That's
Fair
right.
Political Practices Commission, so we are not in a position to make changes to those forms or those disclosure requirements. If such change were requested, it would have to have the approval of the Fair Political Practices Commission and apply statewide.
Okay, and can we just make that glaringly apparent to applicants when they go to download that form or to file rather electronically on our access websites? In other words, when they come online, they're going online to the state, correct?
Well, I think that, forgive me, Director Pelham, I believe that in her report, and as I had asked her, and we'd had a little bit of exchange on this, that the work of the Commission in the upcoming year will be to examine the communication and outreach practices of the Commission to make sure that those who are affected and who need to file by the deadline in order to be able to continue to participate in their Board or Commission, that they are well aware in advance of the deadline that they need to file, and that if they don't file, they would not then be allowed or to deliberate and participate in their proceedings. So I think that that's a really critical point of communication and of work that the Commission needs to do, and I think that Gayatri will be, kind of leading that charge, and have a lot of confidence that we will, with a whole year to prepare for the filings for next April 1st, that we'll have a robust communication plan in place. At least that's my expectation.
Well, I just want to make sure they're properly noticed so that
absolutely.
we can't be blamed for not being aggressive and robust in our outreach.
Right.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay. Commissioner Rennie.
I was just wondering, to save the staff some time, maybe Commissioner Kopp had some questions about NetFile, and now that Steve is here, I think Steve can answer those questions, can't he? Maybe he could answer them and not require further work by the staff. So if Mr. Massey could come up and we can
I think it's
direct the questions to
how
him.
long has this NetFile had a contract with the Ethics Commission?
First contract was around 2007 or 8.
All right. And is that on a bid?
It was a sole source waiver back in 2007
And
8.
who
when that was.
granted the waiver? The Ethics Commission?
The Ethics Commission had to take part in it. The Office of Contract Administration also had a role in it.
And who signs the final document waiving a bid?
The Office of Contract Administration.
All right. And how long was that contract?
That was a 3-year contract, and then there was a new contract in 2010, and then there was an amendment in 2013. There was a 5-year contract. That contract is almost expired, and then we have another contract that is now running concurrent to the 2013 contract that will eventually pick up support for the system after the contract expires in 2018, and it will also allow us to implement some new projects.
When will it expire?
That contract will expire mid-2020.
You said the contract expires in 2018.
The 2013 contract expires in 2018. We also signed a second contract with NetFile that will pick up support for the system at the end of 2018 when the 2013 contract expires, and it will also allow us to build new systems such as the Measure C and Measure T lobbyist measures that went before the voters and some other projects.
What date does it expire in 2018?
I believe it's September 30th.
Pardon me?
I believe September 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Public comment? Yes.
My name is Mark Bruno, and I have an ethics complaint before the board since July of last year. And I had talked to Jessica and another woman at the Jackie, I'm sorry, at the ethics board today to make sure that now is the appropriate time to address this issue. Not in specifics. I realize we can't talk about that. It's specific. I'm here only to address the issue of resources for the commission and for the department, because there's something wrong in the city. I've never gone to the Ethics Commission before in my life until July 7th of last year, when before the Board of Appeals, since we're on the issue of SEIs, 2 of the 6 people there who were required under the law to have submitted SEI forms, 2 of 6 is 1/3 or 30%, 2 of the 6 people had not filed the SEI forms for 2 years. That complaint, which was filed in July of last year, still has yet to be resolved. And so I would say to those of you like Director Pelham, who are going before Mayor Farrell, that the worst thing for the city that the city can do is to pretend to pick up trash when there are no trash people to do it. To pretend that you're going to put the homeless in a hospital and there are no doctors. Or here, to pretend that we have an ethics code when apparently we do not have the staff, supporting staff, and I firmly believe that that's the issue, is that we do not have the supporting staff, perhaps the attorneys or investigators or Xerox machines, to do the work that's being given to this very important body and to the people who work so hard to keep people who are appointed and who are elected acting in conformity with the code, with the government code. And I want to cite quickly, because I know many of you are attorneys, I'm not, but you'll appreciate this, a case, Cohen versus City of Thousand Oaks. It's cited by Governor Brown when he was Attorney General, when he wrote conflicts of interest in office, and that was from 2010. And it's also cited, interestingly, by the California League of Cities, the Government Conduct Guide. Why is this case, Cohen versus City of Thousand Oaks, significant to this delay and how this one complaint, and perhaps many others, has been treated? Because we all know, anybody who knows the law on timeliness, that there are 2 aspects to timely requirements to city officials. One is a direct review of that timely requirement, and another one is a jurisdictional view. Well, this case made it clear that the court felt that the timeliness was really a directory issue, not a jurisdictional one. In other words, they weren't going to come down heavy on the city of Thousand Oaks. But what they do say, which is relevant here, is that, however, the city council's failure, read ethics department's failure, to file the written findings in the resolutions after appellants filed their petition is one more example of a cavalier manner in which the city seems to disregard the people's due process rights. So what I point out here is that that's what's being injured here. There might not be a legal case, but it still is something that concerns all of us as citizens, our due process rights. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, no more public comment. Move to item 12. Discussion and possible action regarding status of complaints received or initiated by the Ethics Commission. And it's a possible closed session, as well as possible closed session under item 13, discussion and possible action regarding probable cause determination for complaint alleging violations of the Campaign Finance Reform Ordinance, Article 1, Chapter 1 of the San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code. So,
excuse me, Chair Chu.
Yes.
I had believed that we were going to call item number 14 before we go into closed session.
Oh, we're going to do 14? Okay.
Just so we could hear from the public before we go into closed session.
So, for
Wait
items...
a minute, you're calling, excuse me, through the chair, why call 14?
Because this is obviously up to the discretion of the chair and the commission, but I believe the rationale is that we wanted the public to be able to provide comment on number 14 before we go into closed session, so they didn't necessarily have to wait around during items 12 and 13.
Well, how do you know we're going in closed session? Don't we have 13 still on the calendar?
Yes, we do, and then 13 would be in closed session. And if we
I
wanted to
elect
discuss...
not to go into closed session.
For item 12 or item 13?
Pardon me?
For item...
13. It's a preliminary hearing, and those are heard in the open. And I don't like the idea of going into a closed session on a preliminary hearing.
Hi, Mr. Givner.
Good afternoon. John Givner, Deputy City Attorney. I'm sitting in for my colleague, Mr. Shen, on this item. Under the charter, enforcement matters must remain confidential until a finding of probable cause is made and a public accusation. So there are matters in this closed session regarding probable cause, potential probable cause findings. Those must be handled confidentially unless a respondent in a probable cause matter requests that they be made public. And if the commission makes a finding of probable cause, the commission then comes out into open session, publicly announces its finding and its accusation, and then the remainder of that proceeding, including a potential hearing on the merits, is all in open session.
All right.
So item 13 will be in closed session, and item 12, if there's a desire on the part of the commission to discuss the status of complaints and investigations that are ongoing, would also be in closed session. So before going into closed session, I'll call for public comment on item 12 and 13 first, and then we'll just do item 14 at the end. So any public comment on items 12 or 13? Okay, then.
Madam Chair, through the chair, does staff have an idea of approximately how long this probable cause closed session will take?
Thank you, Commissioner. I anticipate that staff's presentation will last 5 minutes, give or take. The respondent is here to make a presentation of his own, and so the duration of the session...
No, I'm talking about the closed session. How
Correct.
long will that take?
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends how many questions commissioners have, but it could take as little as 10 minutes or as many as, I truly don't know, 45. I think it depends what questions you might have.
All right.
I would move that we go into closed session.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You should take public comment prior to voting to go into closed session.
Well, she had already asked.
I already
you already
asked,
have. I'm sorry.
So there's no public comment. So, Kyle, can you put us on whatever you need to do?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There wasn't any item 14, was there? Or...
Well, no.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television. SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television. SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television. SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
Good morning and welcome to the birthday celebration of Mayor Ed Lee and to the dedication of the photograph in the Hall of Mayors here at City Hall. It's a tradition, and today we celebrate that. And may I please introduce your host for this evening, this morning. It's a long day, but a good day. Mayor Mark Farrell. Mark.
Thank you, Charlotte, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall. Welcome to Room 200, the place that was Mayor Lee's office for almost 7 years here inside of City Hall. It is an honor to welcome all of you here today. A welcome to all of Mayor Lee's friends, colleagues, supporters, and a special welcome to Mayor Lee's family. We are joined today by Mayor Lee's wife, Anita, Mayor Lee's mother, Pansy, who is here, who it is also her birthday today. So we are celebrating 2 birthdays today. And Tanya and Brianna, his 2 daughters, as well as 3 of Mayor Lee's siblings, and many other who have traveled from D.C., New York, Los Angeles, a lot from Seattle. So welcome, especially to the Lee family. You know, we're here today to celebrate and honor Mayor Lee. And, you know, from my political perspective, he did so much from our city. He served our city for so many decades, and of course we all remember him mostly as our mayor and his fight around affordable housing and the highest minimum wage in the country and coming out of the Great Recession and digging our city out of it. But I think what I will, and I think most of us will remember truly, is Mayor Lee, the person. And that is what we are here to celebrate today. We have some amazing former mayors here with us, Senator Feinstein, Mayor Brown, the man in blue, who is here today. Everyone's seen him already. You can't miss him. Our Lieutenant Governor, Gavin Newsom, who is here today. Come on out. But I think we will all agree that there's not been a nicer, more humble individual to walk these halls in Room 200 than Mayor Ed Lee. And so it is with great pleasure to welcome everybody today. This is a time-honored tradition. Every sworn-in mayor has their picture hung in the Hall of Mayors, dating back to the first alcalde in 1834. So this is a long tradition. This was Mayor Lee's official photograph taken by Jean Huang a number of years ago, and I've always loved this picture because the smile on his face, it reminds certainly me of exactly his demeanor and who he was and the joy he had in his daily life. So I want to thank all the people inside of City Hall that worked to make today happen, including the people that worked logistically on the picture, and thank you for making today happen. So with that, again, I welcome you all on behalf of Mayor Lee's family and all of our former mayors here today. And with that, we'd love to turn it over to our former mayor, our senior senator from California, Dianne Feinstein.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to Willie and Gavin and the family of Ed, I would like to just say this. I had 9 years as mayor, very difficult circumstances. There are difficult circumstances now. Willie came as speaker. Gavin performed, they both performed wonderfully for the city and for the people of this city. It's not an easy office, and people do it in different ways. I don't think we have ever had a mayor, though, in my lifetime, that has had the kind of background that Ed did. Human Rights Commission, purchaser, head of the Department of Public Works, CAO, Chief Administrative Officer, highest unelected position in the city, and mayor of this city. So that he had a way about him that was developed over all these years of getting something done and not worrying about a lot of bluster or commentary or press for himself. I think it's true. He was a very effective, fine, and wonderful mayor. And I think that's why so much of the city is here today. This simple ceremony, which I didn't have one. Did you have one of these with your picture?
Newsom was the mayor. I would never have a ceremony.
Oh! Can you?
That's just made up.
Fake
Well,
news.
Well,
Just saying.
Gavin, I think everybody knows it was made up. But in any event, this is special. And I hope to the Lee family it's special. And I just want to give our thanks to you for taking time on this Saturday morning to be here and share this moment, a birthday and a salutation, we hope, that will last the time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
So at this point, we'd like to invite Mayor Lee's daughters, Tanya and Brianna, to come up and say a few words.
On behalf of the entire Lee family, we want to sincerely thank everybody who is here today to celebrate the life and the legacy of our dad and the former mayor of San Francisco, Ed Lee. Thank you, Mayor Farrell and Senator Feinstein, for those gracious words. And thank you to the many people in this room who have worked alongside our dad in some capacity during his tireless years serving the city, whether it was back during his days as city purchaser or during his time as mayor or somewhere in between. And we want to thank the community and the city at large for being such a central part of our dad's life and his work.
Being able to see our dad's portrait unveiled here at City Hall, where he dedicated so much of his energy and passion for public service, where he spent so much time learning to lead and build partnerships, where he witnessed and made historic decisions that shaped the kind of city San Francisco is and will be, is an incredibly profound experience for our family. The Lees, who are here today, our mom, Anita, and our grandma, Pansy, and our uncles and our aunts and cousins are his blood family, but many of you here were also his city family. And the fact that we are all joined here today to honor him is something that would have made him smile.
The spirit of service and compassion and community building permeated pretty much everything our dad did. If he was traveling to a new city or a new country, he paid attention to the way that they organized their recycling and their garbage. And he told us whether he thought San Francisco's system was better. If he was out golfing, he was trying to figure out how to plan a golf tournament that would raise money for charitable causes. He deeply supported San Francisco's schools, its community organizations, foundations, festivals, arts, and culture. And we know this because he basically kept every tote bag, every t-shirt, every pin, and every souvenir from every community event that he ever attended. And we know this because we have to clean the garage.
Even though he is no longer here with us, and the loss is no less painful for our family than it was 6 months ago, we are comforted and moved and inspired by the fact that his spirit continues on at City Hall, a place that symbolizes so much about this city and what he loved. And we're so honored that there will be a visual reminder of it here in this office. Thank you from the family.
So thank you, Tanya and Brianna. So with that, we'll take the Lee family back and we'll do the unveiling. And please, everybody, after we do it, please come cycle through. Please take your own view of it. And also, everyone, of course, is invited downstairs for a reception down under the rotunda and in the North Light corridor. South Light. There we go. All right. So please join us. Thanks, everyone. All right. We ready to go? Mr. Tangoma, you want to help her thing? You want to come help me? There we go. Great picture.
Very handsome. Yeah, good.
The San Francisco Carbon Fund was started in 2009. It's basically legislation that was passed by the Board of Supervisors and the Mayor's Office for the City of San Francisco. They passed legislation that said, okay, 13% of the cost of the city air travel is going to go into a fund, and we're going to use the money in that fund to do local projects that are going to mitigate and sequester greenhouse gas emissions. The grants that we're giving, they're anywhere from $15,000 to say $80,000 for a two-year grant. I'm Shawn Rosenmoss. I'm the manager of development, community partnerships, and the San Francisco Carbon Fund for the San Francisco Department of the Environment. We have an advisory committee that meets once or twice a year to talk about, okay, what are we going to fund? Because we want to look at things like equity and innovative projects and being able to be nimble, and would the project be funded if there were no carbon fund?
I heard about the Carbon Fund because I used to work for Department of the Environment on the school education team. My name is Marcos Major. I am the founding director of Climate Action Now. Climate Action Now started in 2011. Our main goal is to remove cement in the public sphere, either in schoolyards or in the public right-of-way on sidewalks, to build out educational gardens that teach people about climate change.
If it's a greening grant, 70% of the funding has to go for capital. It has to go for trees to be planted, it has to go for the plants, it has to go for digging up the pavement, because, again, this is about permanent carbon savings.
The James Lick Middle School Dinosaur Garden and Vegetable Gardens was chosen because the school itself has been covered in asphalt since 1932. The Carbon Fund was our seed funding for this whole project. The whole yard itself, I believe, is around 84,000 square feet. And our project, we removed 3,126 square feet of cement.
We generally issue a greening RFP every other year. And that's for projects that are going to dig up pavement, plant trees, community gardens, school gardens.
We were awarded $43,000 for this project. The produce that we grow here is consumed by and large almost entirely by the school community. In the organic vegetable garden here at James Lick, we're growing all kinds of organic vegetables from lettuce to loroco. And we're going to get some artichokes in the ground. We have lemons. We'll be planting apples and loquat, all kinds of great fruit trees and veggies.
So our first project was the Dog Patch biodiesel fueling facility. The need for that was that we've got a lot of people in San Francisco who have diesel cars that they are running on biodiesel. And they were having to drive over to Berkeley. So in 2009, we gave Dog Patch Biofuels the cost differential between biodiesel and regular diesel. We have funded so many gardens and tree plantings around the city, and one of the ones I really love is the Pomeroy Rec Center.
Pomeroy Center has its roots back to 1952. We've been on this site since 1974. I'm David Dubinsky. I'm the CEO of the Pomeroy Recreation and Rehabilitation Center. We are one of the larger providers of rehabilitation and recreational services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in San Francisco. We also have a program for individuals that have acquired brain injury or traumatic brain injuries. And we also have one of the larger after-school programs for children with special needs that serves the public school system. The SF Carbon Fund for us has been the launching pad for an entire program here at the Pomeroy Center. We received about $15,000. The money was really designed to help us improve our garden by buying plants and material and also some infrastructure like a drip system for plants. We have wine barrels that we repurposed to collect rainwater. We had actually removed over 1,000 square feet of concrete so that we could expand the garden. This is where our participants during the day come to learn about gardening. They learn how to work in the greenhouse. We have plants that we actually harvest and eggs from our chickens that we take up and use in cooking classes so that our participants learn as much as anybody else where food comes from. We have 2 kitchens here at the Pomeroy Center. One is more of a commercial kitchen, and one is more set up like a home kitchen would be. And in the home kitchen, we do a lot of cooking classes, how to make lasagna, how to cook some eggs. So this grant that we received has tremendous value, not only for our center, for the participants, but for the entire community.
The thing about climate overlaps with everything. And so when we start looking at how are we going to solve climate problems, we solve a lot of other problems too. We create a lot of really great opportunities and solutions.
This is a radical project, and to be a part of it has been a real honor and a privilege to work with those administrators with the SF Carbon Fund at the Department of the Environment.
San Francisco Carbon Grant for us opened the door to a new world that we didn't really have before. The result is this beautiful garden.
When you look at the community gardens we've planted in schools and in neighborhoods, how many thousands of people now have a fabulous place to walk around and feel safe being outside and are growing their own food. That's a huge impact, and we're just going to keep rolling that out and keep rolling that out.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. You know, for the past 4 months, as mayor of the city of San Francisco, I have heard from residents across our entire city, families, businesses, everybody up and down the ladder about the state of our streets.
I don't need to gavel in, do I? Do I gavel in? Okay. Great. We are back in session. So on item 12, the commission took no action. On item 13, the Ethics Commission conducted in closed session a probable cause hearing in the matter of John Avalos for Mayor 2011 and John Avalos, respondent, SF San Francisco Ethics Commission complaint number 13-150618. Based on the entire record of the proceedings, the Commission announces that it has found probable cause to believe that a violation of law has occurred. The respondent is presumed innocent unless and until such time that the allegations are proved in a subsequent hearing on the merits. Because the respondent cannot properly document more than $2,000 in non-monetary contributions, the Commission found probable cause to believe the respondent failed to maintain complete records for contributions received in 2 counts in violation of San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code, sections 1.106 and 1.109. Because the respondent cannot properly document more than $100,000 in expenditures, amounting to 16% of total campaign expenditures, the Commission found probable cause to believe the respondent failed to maintain complete records for expenditures in 4 counts in violation of SF Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code, sections 1.106 and 1.109. Because the respondent did not timely report nearly $140,000 in expenditures, amounting to 21% of total expenditures, the Commission found probable cause to believe the respondent failed to disclose expenditures in 4 counts in violation of San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code, sections 1.106 and 1.109. The Commission will schedule a hearing on the merits. And could I have a motion to maintain confidentiality for all of our discussions in closed session?
I move not to disclose the discussion in closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to agenda item 14, discussion and possible action on items for future meetings. Commissioners? Public comment? There being none, we'll move agenda item 15, additional opportunity for public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda pursuant to Ethics Commission Bylaws, Article 7, Section 2. Comment? Public comment? There being none, we're adjourned.
I move to adjourn.
Second.